Hello friends! Today I will tell you a story that will make you experience the whole range of emotions. This is a story about love, betrayal, and revenge. About a man who was ready to do anything for his wife, but ended up in a nightmarish captivity. Are you ready to find out how ordinary life turns into a real thriller? Then be sure to click the subscribe button and we will begin. Old Friend. Chapter 1. You've made a fool of me, but broken dreams must come to an end. Hey woman, you got the blues, because you ain't got nobody else to use. I pressed a button on the radio, switching to one of those late-night talk shows that talk about Bigfoot or UFO sightings. I had heard the same song repeatedly over the past few hours, and I was tired of listening to it. Why, you might ask? It's simple. It reminded me too much of the woman I left. I take that back. I didn't leave, I ran. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Stan Shipman, and for the past 5 years I've been married to Lucy, the former Lucy Dalton. We had a crush on each other back in high school, and I thought we were soulmates. We got married right out of high school. Yeah, big mistake, I know. But we were so in love with each other that we thought it would work out. God, I was wrong. Money was not a problem. I am a welder by profession. I have been doing it since I was a kid. My father was a welder, and he taught me everything I needed to know. I've been collecting metal since I was big enough to safely handle a welding machine. When I was young, I always wanted to join my father on a construction site, but I couldn't. Union rules and insurance regulations prevented it. But my father was a home-based fabric maker, and he always gave me assignments. It was a great learning experience for me, and I loved doing it. After high school, I went to learn to be a welder, but I got bored with the class because I already knew all that shit, so I took the exam and blew all the instructors away. I got my certification and went straight to work. Since I already had a lot of experience and could do not only welding but also fabrication and fitting, I was paid good money, especially when I had to travel out of state for big jobs. I even did some underwater welding and made a lot of money doing it. I made enough to put Lucy through college, and now she's a paralegal working at some cool law firm downtown. So why am I running? And why am I now on the freeway in the middle of the night? The answer is the two-legged creature I married and her evil friend. Oh yes, Lucy was so sweet and bright when we were younger, but things can change, and they did. Don't get me wrong. I loved this woman, and was more than happy to pay for her college. Her parents were sure I'd have to go into debt up to my eyeballs to make it happen. But they grossly underestimated me. On her graduation day, they were just as proud of me as they were of her. Better yet, thanks to me, she graduated without a dime of student debt. But everything went downhill after she started working at the law firm of McMaster and Fredericks. Everything was fine for the first couple of months, but it got worse as time went on. To begin with, some of her female colleagues were a bad influence on her, to say the least. Lucy started going out with them once a week, usually on a Wednesday night. I didn't mind at first, since she usually got home early enough for us to spend the evening together, and I was often at the construction site busting my ass, but as time went on, she started going out on Wednesdays and Fridays. It pissed me off that we usually went out on Fridays. When I reminded Lucy of this, she replied, "We can always go out on Saturdays. I deserve that time with my friends." Then she started staying longer and longer. It got to the point where she wasn't home until early Saturday morning. If I tried to call her number to see if she was okay, the call always went to voicemail. Eventually I got fed up and sat her down at the table to talk about it. "We need to talk," I said one Saturday morning over a cup of coffee. "About what?" she asked. "These Friday night parties of yours," I said. "We used to go out on Friday, but lately you've been partying until almost 4 in the morning on Saturdays. What the hell is going on? I hardly see you anymore." "Me and the girls from the office like to go out and relax and have a few drinks," she says. "Sometimes we dance. That's about it." "I know these clubs usually close no later than 1 o'clock in the morning," I told her. "But you were out much later than that. What's going on? Are you seeing someone else?" "Of course not," she said with a heavy sigh. "If you really want to know, we sometimes go out to eat afterward." "Yes, but until 4 in the morning?" I asked. "Sometimes," Lucy said. "Well, this shit needs to stop," I told her. "You have to make a decision. You're either my wife or their friend. They already see you more often than I do. I don't mind one night with the girls, but I feel like you're taking advantage of me." "I'm sorry," she said. "If you want, I'll stop seeing girls on Fridays." "I think that's a good idea," I said. That way we can spend some time together." She nodded her head in agreement and headed for the shower. I took the opportunity to get her phone out of my purse and installed a phone finder app to keep track of where she was. Partly I hated to do it, but I felt I had to do it, just for my own peace of mind. Things were fine for a few weeks, but Lucy went back to her old habits, and soon she started leaving the house again on Wednesday and Friday nights. I needed to find out what the hell was going on, so I fired up the phone lookup app and figured out where she was. After coming home from work that Friday, I cleaned up a bit and then headed to the club where she and her friends were. It wasn't really a club, more like a bar with a DJ and a dance floor. I walked in and noticed her right away. She was sitting with a group of 4 women and 3 men. I noticed that Lucy was chatting quite nicely with one guy sitting next to her, even a little too much if you know what I mean. I also noticed that she was wearing something much nicer than what she had put on this morning. They were completely oblivious to my presence until I was right at their table. Everyone except Lucy looked up at me, and the guy next to her spoke. "What do you want?" he asked, holding it like he was going to kick my ass. "I just got home from work and decided to grab a beer," I said, causing Lucy to look at me in surprise. "So I walk into this bar and look what I found. Aren't you going to introduce me to your friends?" Lucy looked around nervously. She was clearly embarrassed. "Everyone," she said. "This is Stan. He's my husband," she added, thinking. "Stan, that's everyone." "Hi, everyone," I said sarcastically. I saw that she wasn't wearing her wedding or engagement ring. "Did you happen to forget anything?" She saw me looking at her left hand. "I took the rings off so I wouldn't lose them," she said. Bullshit, I thought to myself, but I decided not to insist. "I see," I said. The guy next to her stood up and stuck out his chest. He held out his hand, and I took it. "Jake," he said. "Jake Rollins. Lucy and I work together. A lot," he added with a smirk. The rest of us chuckled lightly, except Lucy. He squeezed my hand in a vain attempt to intimidate me and assert himself as the alpha male. It didn't work, so I squeezed it back and squeezed his soft, feminine hand in mine as hard as I could. I could see he was in pain, so I let go. "I was just about to ask your wife to dance, if you don't mind," he said, rubbing his hand. I looked at Lucy. "Is that true?" I asked her. She looked at me and slowly nodded her head. I thought this might be a chance to find out what was really going on, so I nodded my head and gave him permission. "Yeah," I said. "Just watch your hands, and know that this is my wife, and I'll be watching you." He nodded his head as Lucy rose from her seat. After she stood up, I sat down in the seat Jake had previously occupied and ordered a beer. Most of the others had already left for parts unknown. "You don't own it, you know," the girl next to me said as I waited for my beer. "And you are?" I asked. "Marie," she said. "Marie Compton. I've been mentoring Lucy a bit, you know, show her how to do things and stuff." "So, Marie Compton," I said, teasing the way she and Jake introduced themselves to each other. "Who are you that I need to get marriage counseling?" "I'm Lucy's friend, and like I said, I mentor her," she said, taking a sip of her drink. "The partners like her work, and they have big plans for her." I didn't like her smug attitude and wondered what kind of nonsense she was feeding Lucy. "Well, Marie," I said, "I never said Lucy belongs to me, but I am her husband. If something happens that interferes with our marriage, I need to know about it." "Truth be told, Stan, Lucy needs to broaden her horizons a bit," Marie said. "All she's ever known is college and you. She needs to, spread her wings a little." "Expand her horizons and spread her wings, right?" I asked. "Anything else she needs to spread?" "No need to be rude," Marie said. "But since you brought it up, yes. Perhaps she needs to experience other things. Of course, it will be good for you in the long run." "Oh? How?" I asked. "Well, maybe she'll learn something she can bring home to you," Marie said with a smile. "After all, you're probably getting something on the side when you go off to earn money, aren't you?" "No, Marie, I don't," I said. "I go to work, bust my ass, work my ass off, get paid, and then come home. I love Lucy, and I would never do anything to hurt her or jeopardize my marriage." "Maybe it's you who needs to broaden your horizons a bit?" she said with a smirk. "I take my wedding vows very seriously," I said, "and I believe Lucy will do the same. I don't see a ring on your finger. Have you ever been married? A couple times, actually, she said. Let me guess. Your husbands caught you cheating, didn't they? I asked. She shrugged. Yeah, so? She said. I don't belong to anyone. I do what I want to do with who I want to do it with. Well, Lucy is busy, and I expect you to respect that, I said. She giggled. Yeah, you're going to keep thinking that, she said. By then, Jake and Lucy had returned from the dance floor. I stood up so Lucy could sit between me and Marie. I sat down, not letting Jake sit next to her. He didn't look too happy, but I didn't care. So, Lucy told me you're a welder, Jake said. How much do welders make these days? $15 an hour? Actually, I make over $35 an hour, I said. More if I have to work underwater. Didn't Lucy tell you I paid for her college tuition? So you're paying off her student loans? He asked. No, she doesn't have a student loan because I paid her tuition, I told him. I also bought this new Toyota for her. Damn, I didn't realize welders made so much money, he said. I'm in the wrong business. I bet you have a lot of women on the side when you go out of town, huh? He asked, nudging me with his elbow. No, I work when I'm out of town, I said. I usually work 16 hours a day when I'm on a construction site. Like I told Marie, I take my wedding vows very seriously. I bet you do, Jake said smugly. I didn't like where this was going, and these people were starting to piss me the hell off. I turned to my wife. Did you drive here today? I asked her. Yes, she said. Good, I told her. Because I've had enough fun to last me here tonight. I'm going home now. I expect to see you by my side. I started to get up and accidentally knocked over a nearly full ice-cold beer into Jake's lap, getting his khaki pants dirty. Oops, I said. Sorry about that. I think you'd better go home and change your pants. He jumped up, furious, and looked like he was about to take a swing. You better do it, buddy, I told him, because I'll get you in the dirt when I get up. He saw the look in my eyes and backed off. Smart move, I told him. I turned to my wife again. Are you coming? I'm right behind you, she said quietly. I noticed the look Marie was giving me. Believe me, if looks could kill, I'd probably be dead by now. I headed for the exit without looking back. Lucy pulled into the driveway a few minutes after me. Good for her, I thought. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and waited for her in the living room. She burst in, her face red. What the hell was that? She demanded. You confused the hell out of me. Did I embarrass you? I asked rhetorically. Are you following me or something? She asked. I shook my head. No, I actually just wanted to grab a beer and was surprised to see you there with some friends from work, I said, realizing I had just lied to her for the first time since I'd met you. If anyone had reason to be embarrassed, it was me. Imagine what went through my head when I saw my wife, the love of my life and best friend in the world, sitting there with some chick acting like a perky schoolgirl. And imagine how I felt when I saw you take off your wedding ring. Like you were embarrassed to admit you were married to me. Right? Her face softened, and she took a seat next to me. Of course not, she said. It's just that I have to work with these people, and Jake is the lawyer I work with the most. And Marie? I asked. What is her role? She has a higher position in the food chain than I do, Lucy says. She's been mentoring me, showing me what's what. Does that include marital counseling? I asked her. What do you mean? She asked. Well, while you and Jake were dancing, she was telling me all kinds of crap about you needing to expand your horizons and spread your wings, I said. I asked if that meant you needed to expand all your horizons, and she admitted that it did and will continue to do so. Be honest with me. Have you been cheating on me? No, I haven't, she said, lowering her gaze. For some reason, she couldn't look me in the eye. Was she lying to me? I hope you don't, because you know that's one thing I can never forgive, I told her. Marie said you might get some while you're gone, Lucy said. Really? No, I told her. We've known each other probably since 6th grade. Have you ever known me to be unfaithful to you? She shook her head. No, she said quietly. I've never cheated on you, and I don't intend to, I said. I love you too much to disrespect you like that and hurt you. Besides, when I'm not here, I'm too busy working. I wasn't kidding when I told Jake that I often work 16 hours a day. I know, she said. I've seen your payroll. That's it, I told her. What do you think you've been going to college for? Buying yourself a new car, dressing in nice clothes all this time? And that's on top of paying our regular bills. You know, I've been saving up to make a nice down payment on a house. So you can tell Marie to shove her bullshit up her ass and shut the fuck up about things she knows nothing about. You didn't care for her too much, did you? Asked Lucy. No, not at all, I said. I don't like the crap she's feeding you. It's the same with Jake. I don't trust either of them. Do you know she's been divorced twice? For cheating? Lucy looked at me, shocked. How do you know that? She asked. She told me, I said, and seemed awfully proud of it. I have a feeling those two are up to something and intend to bring you down with them. You haven't done anything wrong, have you? No, Stan, I didn't, she said. It's just… What exactly? I asked her. I like going out with them, she told me. Well, I like going out with you too, I told her. Why don't you start spending time with your husband? Of course, she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. I'm sorry. It's okay, I told her. You know I've only wanted 3 things in my life. What is it? She asked. 1, to be married to you, I said. 2nd, to be the best welder around. And 3rd, to have a family with you. She smiled, snuggling closer to me. Well, you did well with the first 2, she said. Do you want to work on the 3rd? It was my turn to smile. Let's go, I said. We ran to the bedroom and spent the rest of the night together. For a couple more months, things seemed calm. Lucy stayed home on Fridays, and I tried to be more attentive and loving. I purposely didn't mention Marie or Jake anymore, because I believed Lucy would do the right thing. And then it happened. I came home one Friday night and found the house dark, with only a few candles burning on the dining room table. The smell of lasagna wafted from the kitchen, and I thought Lucy had cooked something special. I walked into the dining room and saw that our best china was on the table. When I turned around, I saw her, my beautiful wife, dressed in one of the finest dresses I had ever seen. I liked looking at her legs and she knew it, so she chose a dress so I could get a good look at her best parts. Tonight was already looking good. Do you like what you see? She asked. I nodded my head. Oh yes, I said. I'm glad, she said. Tonight is going to be special. Why? I asked. It's a surprise, she said. Go get cleaned up and then sit down while I make dinner. I went into the bedroom and cleaned myself up, changing into my work clothes. By the time I had washed up and returned to the dining room, Lucy had already served the lasagna and even poured us each a glass of wine. I loved Lucy's cooking, and I especially liked her lasagna, which was always sprinkled with cheese and filled with meat and mushrooms. I don't even know what's more tempting, you or the lasagna, I said, sitting down. She giggled, sitting down. I hope you enjoy both tonight, she said with a smile. I dug into my lasagna, and it was delicious as always. I took a few sips of wine, not wanting to get too drunk. After I finished everything, I felt a little strange. I tried to get up, but I felt so dizzy that I almost fell over. I looked at Lucy confused. What had she done? I asked myself. I tried to speak, but it was very difficult. What? I started, but in the next instant, I was already falling to the floor. When I finally came to, I found myself strapped to a chair in our bedroom. My arms were strapped to the armrests of the chair, and my legs were strapped in a similar fashion. What the hell was that? I asked myself. I became terribly angry and screamed. Lucy! Shouted I. What the fuck is going on? A few moments later, Lucy walked into the bedroom, but she wasn't alone. Marie was with her. What the fuck is this shit? I asked. Get me the fuck out of this chair, now! I'm sorry, honey, Lucy said. Marie said it was for the best. Best for what? Demanded I. So you can see your wife expanding her horizons, Marie said calmly. Was it your idea to tie it to this chair? I asked. Of course, Marie said. Lucy told me you'd never agree willingly, so I gave her something to make you pass out for a while. That way you can watch your wife expand your horizons, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I stared at Lucy, angry like I'd never been in my life. And you agreed to this shit? I asked. You know what that means. I'm sorry, Lucy said. But Marie said it was the only way out. Believe me. Please. It won't affect us in any way. I still love you. Marie said most married men fantasize about these things. No, and it never has. And yes, it does affect us. I told you I wouldn't tolerate any cheating. And what the fuck is that thing you put on me? I asked her. It's called a cage, Lucy said. It's designed to give me complete control over you and let you know who's in charge in our marriage. I swear to God, I said to Lucy, I never fantasized about this, and I promise that if you don't untie me from this fucking chair and get this thing off me right now, we're screwed. Please don't do this, Lucy begged. It's just one night. I'll let you go when we're done. I shook my head. You're not that stupid, Lucy, I told her. Let me go right fucking now. Marie walked over to me, and the next thing I knew, she had her mouth shut on me. You have to be quiet, she said. I shook my head. I struggled to get out of the chair, but I couldn't. Marie got up and walked to the bedroom door. Jake and another man from her office entered the room and looked at me, grinning. Well, well, Jake said. Is he ready for initiation? Yes, Marie said, but he's not very cooperative. Really? Asked Jake. That might help. He jerked back and punched me in the face with his fist. Then he hit me again. Don't hurt him, yelled Lucy. You promised me you wouldn't hurt him. I owe him for ruining my pants, he said. Now he's going to watch me with his wife. With those words, the whole thing began. I was shaking with rage. Jake and Marie laughed, seeing my embarrassment. Marie filmed the whole thing on a small handheld camera. You like watching your wife interact with other men, don't you? Asked Marie, taking notes of what was happening. Admit it, she said. I shook my head and stared daggers at her. It's time for the main attraction, he said, glancing at me. I closed my eyes. Do it, she said. Anytime, Jake growled. Better than your slacker husband? He asked. Oh yeah, that's much better, Lucy said, as tears ran down my cheeks. At that moment, all the love I had felt for Lucy vanished. I had read stories of weak husbands getting turned on, but all I felt was hatred. I tried not to look at them, tried to focus on something else, but it was hard. It was over, and Marie decided to continue. That wasn't so bad, was it? Marie said. Make sure you get it, Jake said to Marie. In the next instant, I realized that two men were doing something that made me ready to strip them of everything they have, had, and would have. I thought I was going to throw up. Lucy laughed. When they were done, Jake leaned toward me. If you say or do anything, Loon, I swear I'll make your life a living hell, he said. From now on, your wife belongs to me. I will come whenever I want and do whatever I want. Understand? He stood up and turned to the other man. Come on, let's go, he said. When they left, Marie walked over to me. Don't even think about causing trouble, she said. Jake wasn't kidding. Those were child's play compared to what we can do to you. Understand? She stood up and looked at Lucy. Wait until I leave, then let him loose. If he does anything nasty to you, call me. Lucy nodded her head in understanding. After Marie left, Lucy cut the ropes holding me to the chair. Then she took the key from the nightstand and removed the cage. She started to say something, but I interrupted her, got dressed, and went to the phone. What are you doing? She asked as I dialed 911. I may be a welder, but I'm no fool. I knew what she and her accomplices had done was highly illegal, and I intended to see them in jail that very night. Lucy freaked out when she realized I had just called the police to report an assault with unlawful restraint. I snatched Lucy's cell phone from her to keep her from calling Marie. I also took the keys out of her purse to keep her from leaving. She tried to snatch the phone and keys out of my hands, but I managed to wrestle them from her and put them in my pants pocket. Finished talking, I sat down and waited for the cops. I knew they would want to examine me and take fluid samples for evidence. Please don't press charges, Lucy pleaded. I don't want to go to jail. Trust me, this is the safest place for you right now, I said. You can get dressed. The cops will be here any minute. You heard what Jake and Marie said, Lucy told me. They're serious. You shouldn't mess with them. Get dressed, I told her. Lucy saw the look on my face and realized it was best not to push me. She dressed quietly, and I felt her phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw that Marie had sent a text. "Everything okay?" Marie's message read. "It's okay," I wrote. "He's not too happy, but he'll get over it." I sent the message, hoping Marie would buy the deception. I put my phone back in my pocket. By the time Lucy walked in the front door, the police had arrived. I opened the door and let them inside. One look at my face was enough to know that things were bad. One of the officers recorded my statement, while the other talked to Lucy in the bedroom. The officer who recorded my statement called an ambulance and took swabs from my face and placed them in evidence bags. The second officer returned, and they conferred at the front door for a few minutes before going back inside. When they did, the second officer went into the bedroom and came out of there with Lucy. Her hands were behind her back and she was crying. "Please don't let them arrest me," she pleaded. "This was just supposed to be fun." I shook my head and turned away from her. By then, 2 more police cars and an ambulance had shown up. A policewoman appeared in the doorway and took Lucy away. The policeman who took my statement said she was under arrest for unlawful detention, drug use, and violence. "We'd like to have you checked out at the hospital," he told me. "We'll need to take blood and urine samples to determine what they drugged you with." I thought about arguing, but decided against it. The more evidence against whoever did this, the better. "Perhaps you should also sign a protective order," he told me. He handed me a card with the name of a lawyer from the local prosecutor's office and a phone number. I already took the liberty of calling her, and she said she would meet you at the hospital, he told me. I thanked him and set off with the paramedics, who did a cursory examination on the way to the hospital. In the emergency room, they examined me, took samples of the substance on my face, washed me and took blood and urine samples. I was given an anesthetic and was starting to calm down when a well-dressed woman entered the examination room. "Stan Shipman?" she asked. I nodded my head. "It's me," I said. "Mr. Shipman, I'm Linda Calloway," she said. "I'm the assistant district attorney assigned your case. How are you feeling?" "I'm feeling better," I said. "A little tired now." They gave me something to take the pain away. "Mr. Shipman, the officers who transported you have informed me of the situation," she said. "I have also been informed that the other woman and the 2 men who assaulted you have been taken into custody and are in the county jail awaiting a hearing. I am requesting that they be released on bail, but the reality is they will likely be released on their own recognizance. I'm afraid the company they work for has a lot of influence in the county. Therefore, I have taken it upon myself to seek a protective order for you." "Thank you for that," I said. "Do you think it will do any good?" She shrugged. "I can't say for sure," she said. "It's possible, but there's no guarantee." I nodded my head. "I understand," I said. "If it's any consolation, they'll be in jail at least until Monday morning, when the arraignment hearing will take place," she said. "After that, I understand," I said. "I'm an ordinary laborer who has no friends in high places. When it comes to fighting, I'm on my own." "You have me, Mr. Shipman," she said with a note in her voice. "As long as you don't do anything stupid. But you might want to hire a divorce lawyer, unless you plan to stay married to your wife." "No, I'm done with her," I said. She nodded her head understandingly. "I'm told they plan to keep you overnight for observation," she said. "And that's good, since your apartment is now a crime scene. They'll need time to look around and collect evidence. By the way, do you have a gun?" I shook my head. "No, I don't," I told her. After my younger brother accidentally shot himself in the leg with Dad's .22 caliber pistol, he got rid of all his guns, and I decided it was better not to have any. "Okay," she said. "Just so you know, we have lock laws in our state, so you can defend yourself in your own home." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "What about drugs?" she asked. "Do you have drugs in your apartment?" I shook my head again. "I'm not, but apparently I can't say the same for my wife," I said. "Okay, I'll pass on that," she said. After she left, I found myself falling asleep and woke up when I was moved to a private room. After I was placed, I was given more medication and fell asleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, my parents came over to my house after I finished breakfast. They sat in silence while I told them everything that had happened. When I finished, my father was furious. "What are you going to do, son?" he asked. I'm divorcing that fool, I told him. He nodded his head approvingly. Good for you, he said. Is there anything we can do? I could use the name of a good divorce lawyer, I said. I know a few people, he said. I'll see what I can come up with. I could use a ride home after you're discharged too, I said. No problem, my dad said. Just call me when you're ready. In the meantime, get some rest and take it easy. Don't do anything stupid. You know me, I said. Yeah, I know, he said with a smile. That's why I said not to do anything stupid. We all had a good laugh, and they left after my mom gave me a hug. A little while later, Lucy's parents came in. We always got along well, and they were like second parents to me. I told them about what had happened the night before. They were shocked and embarrassed by what their daughter had done. I take it you'll be filing for divorce, her father said. I nodded my head. Yes, I said. I can't live with what she did. I understand, he said, and I'm sorry. Is there anything we can do? Her mother asked. If Lucy gets out of jail, she'll need a place to stay, I said. The ADA will get a protective order, so she won't be able to stay in the apartment. She can stay with us, her mother said. Thank you, I told her. We said goodbye, and they left. A couple hours later, the doctor came in and examined me. He declared me fit to be discharged, and the nurses started the paperwork. I knew it would take a while, so I called my dad and let him know. My parents returned about the time the paperwork was finished. After the nurse gave me directions, she put me in a wheelchair and took me to the loading area where my dad's car was parked. They helped me get in and we drove off. Soon we pulled up to the apartment. Dad helped me to the door and we said goodbye again. Remember, he said, if you need anything, just call. Thanks, Dad, I said. I walked into the apartment and looked around. The police had gone through everything, and I knew it would take time to put everything in its proper place. I noticed right away that there was a message on our answering machine. I listened to the message. Dead meat, the message read. Nothing else, no introduction, nothing. I looked and found that the number was listed as private. Something about the message seemed familiar, so I listened to it a few more times. And then it hit me. It wasn't a person speaking directly into the receiver. I recognized the phrase from one of the old Rocky movies, specifically the Mr. T movie. Whoever had sent the message had recorded it and then played it back over the phone. A few minutes after I realized this, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a fairly young, attractive brunette standing outside. I remembered seeing her at the club when I'd first met Jake. I looked closely, but I didn't see anyone else with her. A thought flashed through my mind, and I pulled my cell phone out of my shirt pocket. I activated the camera and set it to record, then put it back in my pocket. Then I opened the door, but didn't remove the chain. Yeah? I asked. Mr. Shipman? She asked quietly. That's me, I said. And you? Holly Brinkman, she said. I work with your wife. May I come in, please? Are you alone? I asked. Yes, I am, she said. I closed the door to disconnect the chain and opened it again to let her inside. After she came in, I closed and locked the door. What can I do for you, Miss Brinkman? I asked. Please call me Holly, she said. Okay, Holly, I said. Again, how can I help you? She handed me a manila envelope. What's this? I asked. Open it, please, she said quietly. I opened the folder and looked inside. Seeing a couple pictures, I put the envelope on the coffee table and went to the kitchen where I grabbed a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want to risk getting my fingerprints on anything. When I returned, I pulled out the photos and was shocked by what I saw. The photos showed a man on his knees with his hands tied behind his back. The pictures were horrifying images. Another photo showed the same man, but from a different angle. I looked at Holly. Who's that? I asked. It was my husband, she said, and tears rolled down her cheeks. His name was Brian. Did you report it? I asked her. She nodded her head. Yes, she said. The police have ruled it a suicide. How? I asked. You don't understand, she said. The firm we work for has friends in very high and low circles. They own most of the police force, and several judges are on their payroll as well. I see, I said. Did Jake do it? She shrugged. I don't know. she said. He may have ordered it done. So why are you still working at the firm? I asked her. I have no choice, she said. Let me guess, I said. You're not just a lawyer's secretary, am I right? That's right, she said. They did to us the same way Jake and Marie did to you. Only my husband went after Jake, and paid a huge price for it. So you're really just a girl for the firm, aren't you? I asked. She nodded her head. Yes, she said. My job is to be available to attorneys and their clients. What's Marie's role in all this? I asked. She's kind of like a madam, Holly said. She handles all of our assignments. And she added Lucy to her stable? I asked. Yes, she said. I looked inside the envelope and saw something else, a doubled folded piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a note, but the letters looked like they had been cut out of magazines and newspapers and glued to the paper. Talk about smut. I almost laughed, but suppressed the impulse. Stan Shipman, the note began. Stand back or it could be you. The note read. I looked at Holly. Did you read it? I asked her. She shook her head. No, she said. He was dropped off at my apartment this morning with a note for me to deliver him to this address. Are you ready to tell the district attorney about this? I asked. She shook her head. No, she said. I'd like to go on living if you don't mind. You don't realize how evil these people are, especially Marie. How many people in your firm know about all this? I asked. Pretty much everyone above middle management, she said. I nodded my head. Figuratively, I said. Okay, Holly, thanks for bringing this to me. I'm really sorry about that, she said. You seem like a really great guy. Lucy is lucky to have you. Thanks for telling me, Holly, I said. Have a good day, I added as I opened the door in front of her. I watched her leave and made sure no one else was around. I closed and locked the door. That and the voicemail changed the situation dramatically. I still intended to divorce Lucy, but these threats took things to a new level. I finished the video and called Linda. Fortunately, she had written her personal phone number on the back of her business card. This is Linda Calloway, she said when she answered. I told her about the voicemail and the envelope that had just been delivered. That changes everything, she said. Okay, I want you to bring it to me, right now. She gave me her address and then ended the conversation. At that moment, I decided that I needed to get out of this Dodge for a while. I packed enough stuff to last me a few days and threw it in the back seat of my F-150. I had another brainstorm and grabbed the cage Lucy had used on me the previous night. It went in the truck as well. I had an idea and I wanted to put it into action a bit. After putting some basic welding tools in the truck, I called my boss to let him know what was going on and asked for time off, which he quickly granted me. The work is done and you're going to have a bunch of vacations anyway, so take whatever time you need and deal with it, he said. Thanks, boss, I said. I checked everything one more time, locked the door, and headed outside. I made it to Linda's apartment in less than 30 minutes. She was shocked when she saw the pictures and the note. I also have a videotape of the discussion with the woman who brought this, I said. It's very enlightening. Let me watch, she said. I pulled out my phone and turned on the video for her. Oh my God, she sighed when the video ended. That explains a lot. Could you give me a copy of this? I handed her my phone so she could do what she needed to do. When she was done, she handed the phone back. And then I realized that Lucy's phone was still in my pocket. I pulled it out and handed it to her. What's that? Asked Linda. It's Lucy's cell phone, I said. I put it in my pocket the night Jake attacked me. I forgot about it until now. Maybe you can find something in there. I'll have our guys take a look, she said. Then she leaned back in her chair. On second thought, maybe I should contact the state or federal authorities. If what Holly said is true, I can't even trust our own police department. She looked up at me before continuing. What are you going to do? I'm going out of town for a while, I said. She nodded her head. What about custody? Maybe we should put you in the witness protection program, she said. Yeah, right, I said. So Jake and his cronies will know exactly where I am. No thanks. Okay, she said. Just let me know where you are, okay? Okay, I said. I headed for the exit, not knowing where to go. All I knew was that I needed to get away from this shit for a while. I stopped at a bank, withdrew as much cash as I could, and drove on, constantly watching for cars that might be following me. All I could think about were pictures of that poor guy who'd been taken out for not wanting to be Jake and Marie's cuckold. I knew that if I wasn't careful, it would happen to me too. It was late at night when I finally got it. I pulled into the parking lot and made the call. I hoped it wasn't too late, and thankfully it wasn't. "Yes," replied the gruff voice on the other end of the wire. "Dave, it's me, Stan," I said. Dave was an old friend of mine. We worked different jobs together and got along well. "Stan, old buddy," he said. "What the hell is going on?" "I have a little problem, and I was wondering if I could stay with you for a few days," I said. "Sure thing, buddy," he said. "Come on up. Just do me a favor and grab a couple of packs of beer, if you don't mind." "No problem, buddy," I said. "I'll see you in a few hours." "See you later," he said, and ended the conversation. Feeling better, I pulled onto the freeway and headed north. On my way north, I noticed a convenience store, stopped, and picked up a couple 6-pack bottles of beer, along with a styrofoam stall and some ice to keep it cold. I also heated up some coffee for myself and decided to grab a couple packs of cigarettes. I didn't usually smoke in the apartment, but I knew Dave smoked and thought he would appreciate the gesture. After all, he'd let me stay with him for a while, so I considered myself indebted, at least to him. Dave Brolin was about 15 years older than me and worked with my father. That's how we got to know each other. He stayed with us several times when he worked in our neighborhood and was kind of like a big brother to me. I learned a lot from him working at my dad's store. He had a rough time growing up. His father worked in the shipyards and eventually died of complications from mesothelioma, thanks to the asbestos he was constantly exposed to. After his father died, his younger sister Beverly stayed home and looked after their mother until she died about a year ago from a stomach ailment. I'd known Bev for quite some time. She was an unprincipled girl, attractive in her own way. Of course, I'd never made a move on her, partly because of Dave's friendship with me and my father, but mostly because I was already in love with Lucy. Bev and I got along fine, and were more like siblings, teasing each other about one thing or another. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I was curious to see what she was like now. Like me, Dave married young, but eventually divorced when he came home, and found his wife with one of her co-workers. He never remarried, but he does go out from time to time. Most of his time is spent caring for Beverly, who now lives with him. Beverly, of course, says she's looking after him. I pulled up to Dave's 2-story log house around 2:30 a.m., grabbed my stuff and ice chest, and met Dave on the porch. "Hope you have some beer for us in there," he said with a smile. Taking the pack of cigarettes I offered him, he opened the door and helped me get the rest of my things into the house. I carried the ice chest into the kitchen and watched a gorgeous blonde woman in a long t-shirt and short pajama pants come down the stairs. "Whose blonde bombshell is that?" I asked Dave. He laughed. "You know who I am, oaf," the blonde said. I took a breath and realized it was Beverly. She looked nothing like the gangly teenage girl I remembered. She had taut legs, her breasts were a little bigger, and her hair reached almost to the middle of her back. "Beverly?" I asked, confused. "Is that really you?" Old friend. Chapter 2. "You know I do, asshole," she said wryly. "Why are you here so early in the morning? Did Lucy catch you cheating and throw you out on the street or something?" "No, not really," I said with reproach in my voice. Bev's face softened as she took me in. "I'm sorry, Stan," she said, looking at my bruise-covered face. "What happened? Are you okay?" "Not really," I said. "That's why I'm here." "Why don't you grab a beer and explain to us what it is?" said Dave. I nodded my head, grabbed 3 bottles of beer, and headed to the front room. I handed 1 bottle to Dave and then turned to Beverly. "Are you sure you're old enough to drink?" I asked her sarcastically. She smiled, raising her middle finger and snatching the beer from my hands. "Spit it out," she said. "What's going on between you two?" "It's pretty embarrassing," I said. "So?" Beverly said. "We're adults, and we're damn close to family, so knock it off." "Okay," I said, before telling them the whole story about Lucy, Marie, and Jake. I showed them the video of my brief encounter with Holly. They sat stunned into silence when I finished. "Shit," Dave said, taking a sip of his beer. "Do you think they know where you are now?" "I don't think so," I told him. "Anyway, I didn't see any cars following me. Fortunately, we're at the top of the hill and can see anyone heading this way. And I still have the gun I bought from your father after Mikey's accident. You still remember how to shoot, don't you?" I nodded my head. "Yeah, but I haven't touched a gun since it happened," I said. My younger brother, Michael, or Mikey as everyone called him, had accidentally shot himself in the leg many years ago with my father's .22 caliber pistol. Mikey suffered only a minor flesh wound and recovered just fine, but my father was so upset about it that he got rid of all his guns and never changed them. "That's all right," Dave said. "I'll take you to the backyard and let you familiarize yourself with them. Bev can work with you too. She's become quite the marksman." I looked at Beverly in surprise. She perked up slightly and smiled slyly. "Does your dad know you're here?" asked Dave. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I haven't told anyone where I am, but I have to put the ADA on notice. You have to remember that I didn't even think about coming here until I left." "All right," he said. "I'll call your parents and let them know this morning when the sun comes up. Don't use your cell phone if you can help it. In fact, it might be a good idea to turn the phone off and take the battery out of it, in case it has some kind of beacon on it." "Good idea," I said, turning my phone off. I flipped open the back cover and removed the battery. "So Lucy and her friends will appear before the judge on Monday?" asked Beverly. "Yes, the arraignment is on Monday," I said. "The prosecutor is hoping the judge will keep them without bail. But after what I heard from Holly, I'm not sure that's going to happen." "Well, you can stay here as long as you need to," Dave said. "I have work in a week, Monday, and I'll be gone for a week. But if you need to hang around, that's fine." "How long are you going to rest?" "I was planning on 2 weeks," I said. "Hopefully things will be settled by then." "Like I said, you can go outside," Dave said. "Thanks, I appreciate that," I said. "If there's anything I can do to help, let me know." Dave looked at Beverly, then smiled. "I'm sure Bev can think of a thing or two," Dave told me. "But you're a guest here, and your ancestors always treated us royally, so you can relax and enjoy the country air, as far as I'm concerned." "Well, guys, it's been fun, but in a few hours I have to get up and make breakfast," Beverly said as she stood up. "I hope you like omelets and hash browns, because that's what I'm going to make," she added, looking at me. "Breakfast of champions," I told her. "Sounds great to me." She waved and headed upstairs. After hearing her bedroom door close, Dave and I went outside for a cigarette and a chat. "What's the story with her?" I asked. "I assumed she was already married and raising children." "Well, she never met anyone she really cared for," Dave said. "She dated a few guys, but according to her, they just weren't right for each other." "To what? To what?" asked I. He looked at me seriously. "For you, Oaf?" he said. "She's always been in love with you?" "No way," I said, shocked. "Absolutely," he said. "The only reason she didn't tell you is because of Lucy. She didn't want to be the reason you broke up." "Are you serious?" I asked. "Like a heart attack," he said. "What makes you think she's still in love with me?" I asked. "I hear her sometimes when she goes to bed," Dave said. "I've heard her call your name more than once." "That's too much information," I said. Dave smiled and took a sip of his beer. "Well, it is what it is," he said. "So when did Beverly turn into a baby girl?" I asked. "She was always a beautiful girl," Dave told me. "She just never flaunted it. Besides, you only had eyes for Lucy, remember?" "Yeah, I know," I said. "Look, between you and me, I'd be more than okay with you two being together," he said. "Just do me a favor, okay?" "What's that?" I asked. "Don't break her heart," he said. "I love my sister, and I think you do too, if you think about it. I just don't want her to get her hopes up and then watch you and Lucy reconcile. It would destroy her." I shook my head. "Lucy's done?" I said. "All right," he said. "Well, I'd better go to bed. I'll see you in the morning." He got up, put out his cigarette in the setup can, and headed upstairs. I finished my cigarette and headed to bed a few minutes later. I fell asleep as soon as my head touched the pillow. I woke up later when Beverly opened the door and called out to me, "Rise and shine." I wiped my eyes from sleep and noticed it was 8:30. I went into the bathroom and did my morning routine, then took a quick shower, got dressed, and went downstairs. After getting dressed, I looked at the ring on my finger and took it off, tossing it on the dresser. When I came downstairs, I saw Beverly in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Her long hair was in a ponytail, her blonde bangs falling over her forehead. She was adorable, and I wondered why I hadn't seen her sooner. "Smells good," I said. She smiled. "I'm glad you think so, cowboy," she said. "The coffee's already made if you want it. Do you still like butter pecan creamer?" "Sure," I said. "Do you have some?" "Oh yes," she said. "In the refrigerator. Help yourself to some. Just save some for Dave and me." I poured a cup of coffee and added some cream. I love Southern butter pecan, thanks to my dad. Dave got hooked on it when my dad brought some to the construction site. "Come in and have a seat," she told me with a smile. "I'll be right with you." I sat down at the table where Dave was already sitting, reading the Sunday paper. "Good morning," I said. He looked at me over the newspaper. "Good morning," he said in reply. "Anything interesting in the news?" I asked. "Yeah, an article in the paper about some fancy lawyer getting arrested on various charges," he said. "Take a look," he added, holding out the article to me. There were no names or details in the article. It was boilerplate news that meant nothing to those who didn't know the whole story. I hummed and held the paper back out. By then, Bev had finished making breakfast and was wheeling it on the cart to the table. "Very tasty," I said, taking a big bite. "Thank you, kind sir," Beverly replied with a smile. "I'm glad you approve." We finished breakfast, and Dave stood up, putting his plate away. "I need to go into town and get something," he said. "I'll be gone for at least a couple hours. If you need to call the district attorney, you can use the house phone." "Thank you," I said. Beverly handed him the list of things she needed, and he slipped it into his pocket. He took his keys and headed for the exit. I looked at Beverly. "Do you need help cleaning the dishes?" I asked. "I don't necessarily need it, but I'd appreciate it," she said. "Thank you for asking." I got up and helped her clear the table. She tossed me a towel and started washing the dishes that were already in the sink. "I see you're not wearing a ring," she said as she washed her plate. "Are you really going to divorce her?" "Yes," I said. I told her I wouldn't tolerate any cheating, and I meant it. "Good," she said with a slight smile. "Glad to see you still have balls." "What's your story?" I asked. "How are you doing?" She shrugged. "Good, I guess," she said. "Is there someone special in your life these days?" I asked. "He was once before," she said. "But he was taken away. Besides, I wouldn't have been able to continue the relationship anyway. Too busy taking care of my parents." "That's what I heard," I said. "Yeah, but it had to be done," she said. "After my dad died, my mom needed my help. I worked as a waitress to bring in some money, since all she had was Dad's 401k and a little social security. I worked until she was too sick to do anything, and then I stayed home and took care of her full time." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "You shouldn't," she said. "I don't regret staying home with her. I just hope that when I'm her age, there will be someone around to help me." "So, what happened?" I asked. "After my mom died, we had almost nothing left," she says. "We had to sell the house and a lot of her stuff. With what was left of Dad's pension and 401k, we were able to pay for all of her last expenses. There wasn't much left, and Dave let me take them since I was taking care of her. He promised Mom that he would let me stay here with him, and I've been here ever since. Dave offered to pay for my college tuition, but I declined." "Why?" I asked. "I don't want to owe anyone," she says. "I want to earn my own money if I can. So I stay here and work at the McDonald's in town. I earn enough to cover my expenses, and I take some business courses in the evenings." "Good for you," I said. "Yeah, Dave has an idea to start his own produce business, and he mentioned that I would be doing the bookkeeping and stuff," she said. "Is he still talking about it?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "He does a lot of one-off things for the locals. Custom grills, trailers, that sort of thing. Gets good money for it. His dream is to stay home and work in his workshop in the backyard. Maybe he can show it to you while you're here." "That would be nice," I said. We fell silent, and I began to admire her. For the first time, I realized how beautiful she really was, and not just in appearance. She looked at me for a moment before she said something. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "I think I'm looking at the most beautiful woman I've ever met," I told her. I thought a tear appeared in her eye. "Stop teasing me," she said quietly, looking down. "No," I said. "I can't help but admire you. You put your own life on hold for your parents, refused to accept Dave's offer to put you through college, and now you're working at the school yourself. I only wish I'd noticed it sooner." "Well, you were blinded by Lucy, so I can't blame it on you," she said. "Yeah, you're probably right," I said. After she'd washed all the dishes, she dumped the water in the sink, wiped her hands, and turned to me. "She used you, you know," Bev said. "I think you're right," I said. "Of course I'm right," she told me. "I saw right through her years ago." "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "You wouldn't believe me," she said. I realized she was probably right. Hell, she couldn't have done wrong in your eyes. She had her little finger so tight around you, you'd do anything for her. "All I wanted was for her to be happy," I said. "And look where that got us," she asked rhetorically. "She got a degree, a new car, all sorts of trinkets and clothes, all at your expense. And when she didn't need you anymore, she traded you in for a new model. I'm glad she's in jail, because if she were here right now, I'd tear her ass up." "I think so," I said. "I just want to know one thing," she said, putting her hands on her hips. "What's that?" I asked. "Are you going to give in to her tears and take her back?" she asked. I shook my head. "No," I said. "That ship has sailed. It's not going to happen after Friday." "All right," she said. "And if you ever have any doubts, remember this." She did something. I felt something unusual looking at her. She didn't end there. She walked over to me and hugged me, giving me the best kiss I had ever experienced. "I love you, Stan Shipman," she said. "I've always loved you. Don't ever forget that. I'll be your woman for as long as you want me to be." "I love you too, Beverly," I said. "I want to stay that way for the rest of my life." "Sounds good, but I don't think my brother would appreciate it," she said jokingly. I laughed and then kissed her. "We better get cleaned up before Dave gets back," she said. "I've got some meat to put out for tonight, so why don't you run down and take a quick shower, okay? I'll be up in a bit." "All right," I said. "What about the meat?" "We like to barbecue on Sundays, weather permitting," she said. "You like venison, don't you?" "Yes, I love venison," I said, "but I haven't eaten it in years." "Okay," she said. "I shot the .50 caliber of Dave's flintlock myself. I even field-dressed it with my own hands." "What a woman you are," I said. "A rugged type in the wild. I'm really impressed." I had seen Dave's flintlock and knew it had to be at least 49 inches long. "Did you load it yourself?" I asked her. "Of course," she said. "A Pat-Laddie round ball with 100 grams of double F gunpowder. I even molded the bullet myself." "Damn," I said. "You like fishing too?" She smiled. "I love to fish," she says. "I even bait my own hooks and clean the fish." "Is there anything you haven't done?" I asked sarcastically. "I haven't rebuilt the gearbox in Dave's truck yet," she said. "Yet. I did help him rebuild the engine, though." "I'm definitely in love," I told her and kissed her. She kissed me back. "Now hurry upstairs and take a quick shower," she said. "I'll be up shortly." I got up and jumped in the shower. A few minutes later, Beverly joined me. "There's no time for that now," she said. "Just wait until tonight when we go to bed. By the way, you'll be sleeping with me from now on. My bed is much bigger than the one in your room." "Won't Dave be upset?" I asked. "No," she said. "Besides, we're both consenting adults." After showers, we got dressed and went downstairs. "I need to call the district attorney and let her know where I am," I said. Bev pointed to a cordless telephone set lying in a stand. "Come on, use this phone," she said. I picked up the receiver and called, almost forgetting that it was a long-distance phone. Linda picked up after the second ring. "Linda Calloway," she said. "Linda, this is Stan Shipman," I said. "I called to let you know where I am." "Stan, thank God you called," she said. I was getting worried. I see you're calling long distance. Where are you? I'm with an old family friend, I said. I turned off my cell phone just to be safe. Good, she said. I'll keep you updated as much as possible. I've already heard from the feds. It seems they're looking into the firm your wife works for. By the way, I took the liberty of talking to an old friend of mine who happens to be the best divorce attorney around. I hope you don't mind. No, I don't, I said. Good, Linda said. She expects to hear from you tomorrow. I told her a little about your situation. If anyone can handle it, she can. Thank you, I said. I will. Linda gave me the information I needed and promised to let me know how it went at the hearing before we finished talking. By then, Dave had returned, and I went out to help him drop off what he'd bought. By the way, he said when we were done, I called your folks. They were very worried about you. I told them you'd be staying with us for a while. Thank you, I said to him. That night we barbecued the meat and enjoyed a lovely dinner on the outdoor patio. After dinner, we all set about cleaning up. Dave and I grabbed a beer each and went for a smoke while Beverly finished the job. Bev said you'd be sleeping in her room, Dave said. Is that for how long? I felt a little awkward discussing this with him. After all, she was his sister. I think so, I said. You think? He asked. Yes, it is, I said. I just need to get the divorce over with. Do you love her? He asked. Yeah, I know, I said. Good, he said. It's about time you pulled your head out of your ass, he added with a smile. Bev's a big girl and can make her own decisions. She can definitely take care of herself. I just don't want her to get hurt, that's all. I would never hurt her, I said. Glad to hear it, he said. Welcome to our family, he added, extending his hand. I took it, and we shook hands heartily. Just don't keep me up all night, okay? I laughed, nodding my head. I'll do my best, I said. That night, after Bev and I shared a bed, I pulled her close to me and thought about our possible future together. In that moment, I felt more content than I had ever felt in a long time. What are you thinking about? She asked quietly. The future, I said. Oh, she asked. Yeah, I said. I mean, what do you want out of life? Where do you see yourself in, say, 5 or 10 years from now? I know women these days like to break through the glass ceiling and get to the brass rings, she said, but I'm not like that. I don't aspire to a career or anything like that. All I want is a faithful husband who loves me as much as I love him and a family to take care of. That's it. What about your classes? I asked. It's mostly for Dave's benefit, she said. When he starts his own business, he's going to need help. What about you? What do you want out of life? I guess I'm a lot like you, I said. All I really want is a faithful wife who loves me as much as I love her, and a family of my own. I thought I had that with Lucy, but it didn't work out. What about your job? She asked. I like what I do for a living, I said. Sometimes it takes me away for a couple weeks. Can you handle it? She laughed. Please, she said. My brother is a welder like you, remember? I know what to expect. I can handle anything if I know you'll come home to me. I stared at her for a few moments before saying something. I wish I had met you before I met Lucy, I said. Me too, she said. But what's done is done. We'll get through this together, okay? We're a team, and we can get things done as long as we're together. I'll always be there for you, no matter what happens. I love you so much, I said, kissing her. I love you even more, she said, hugging me. I fell asleep, feeling truly loved for the first time in years. The next day, Beverly got up before anyone else. After making breakfast, she ran upstairs to get ready for work. On the way, she kissed me, telling me that she had school in the evening after her shift. I'm usually home by 9:30, so you guys will have to manage on your own, she said. Remember, no matter what happens, I love you guys, and I'm here for you. I love you too, I said, returning her kiss. She had no idea how much it meant to hear those words from her. What? Asked Dave. Don't I get a kiss too? He added with a smile. Beverly laughed and gave him a sisterly peck on the cheek. You two try to stay out of trouble, okay? She asked as she walked away. I need to call that divorce lawyer Linda recommended to me, I said, glancing at my watch. Dave pointed to the phone, and I picked it up and called. The law office of Bernice Goodwin, said the friendly female voice on the other end. I introduced myself and asked if Bernice was free, informing the receptionist that she was expecting my call. Miss Goodwin is expecting your call, sir, the woman said. One moment, please. I heard some sort of musical accompaniment in the receiver for a few moments before another woman answered. Bernice Goodwin, the woman said. How can I help you? This is Stan Shipman, I said. Linda Calloway gave me your number and said I should call you this morning. Oh yes, Mr. Shipman, she said. Linda told me what was going on, and I've been waiting for your call. Normally, I prefer the first meeting to be private, but I understand that's not possible this time. That's okay. In this day and age, we can do most of this online. Please tell me your story and don't leave anything out. I spent some time explaining the situation, and she listened patiently. What are your expectations? She asked when I was done. I want as much as I can get, I said. No alimony, and at least my share of our property. I think we can do that, Bernice said. Your wife, who has criminal charges against her, should strengthen your case. However, I need to see your financial records. Do you have any property? A house? Anything like that? No, we live in an apartment, I said. What about the lawsuit against Marie and Jake? She asked. Alienation of affection suits are allowed in this state, but I have to tell you, they usually don't go very far. You're probably better off suing for intentional infliction of mental anguish. Do what you think is right, I said. All right, she said. I'll take a closer look at it and get into action. Do you have an email address? Yeah, I know, I said. Okay, she told me. I'm going to send you some documents. One is a contract that you'll have to sign and return electronically. The other is a checklist of things to do. Take care of that for me, please. I also need you to pay in advance. Can you do that today? Yes, I said. Good. I'll send it all to you, and as soon as it's ready, I'll have the papers handed over, she said. Any questions? No questions, I said. I gave her my email address, whereupon she transferred me to her assistant, who took down my credit card information. After talking on the phone, I turned on my laptop and checked my email. Sure enough, there was an email from Bernice with 2 documents attached. I opened the contract, signed it electronically, and sent it back with a receipt to make sure she received it. There was also a document there that informed me how to protect myself financially. Thank goodness for online banking, I thought. It took some time, but I was able to open a new account for myself and transfer half of our savings and checks into it. I paid off and cancelled Lucy's credit card, but I kept mine open because I had just paid my fee with it. When I finished all the chores, it was past noon, and Dave took me to his shop where he was working on a trailer for one of the farmers in the area. I worked with him for a while and found it somewhat relaxing. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we got a phone call. Dave picked up the phone using an extension cord from his store and handed it to me. It's your lawyer, he said. It's Stan, I said, picking up the phone. Stan, this is Linda Calloway, she said. Bad news. The judge set all of them minimum bail and released them. How is that possible? I asked. He must be in their custody, she said. Fortunately, the protective order is in force, but I'm afraid it's as good as the paper it's written on. Your best bet is to stay where you are. Stay out of town. The feds are keeping an eye on them for now, but I can't guarantee your safety. Awesome, I said. So what do we do now? Stay where you are, she said. I'll do what I can on this side. Call me if you need anything, okay? Yeah, okay, I said. We ended the conversation, and I handed Dave the phone back to him. Bad news? He asked. Yes, I said. The judge let them go. Shit, he said. I better call your parents and let them know. I think that's a good idea, I said. I guess I should be the one to tell them. Dave nodded his head and handed the phone back to me. I dialed the number and my dad answered on the second ring. Dad, it's me, Stan, I said. How are you doing, son? He asked. I'm fine, I said. I just wanted to let you know that the judge let Lucy and her friends go free. You might want to be on your guard. Something tells me they might pay you a visit to find out where I am. Don't worry, son, he said. We won't tell them anything. Are you still at John Harrison's? The question surprised me, since he already knew where I was. John Harrison was a retired molder my father and I had worked for in the past. After retirement, he and his wife moved to a place about 2 hours south of town. And then it hit me. Lucy and her friends are probably there right now looking for me. I decided to play along with the ruse. I'm actually in a motel about 50 miles south of there, I told him. All right, he said. Just as long as you're okay. I'm fine, I said. But I'm leaving here in the morning. I plan to head east. Just let me know where you are, okay, son? He asked. Yes, of course, I said. Can I talk to my mom? She's busy in the bathroom right now, Dad said. I listened carefully and thought I heard a noise in the background. Okay, I said. Tell her I'm okay and I love her. You will, son, my father said. I could hear the tension in his voice and prayed he was safe. We'll talk soon, okay? I will, Dad, I said. Love you. I love you too, son, he said before the call ended. I looked at Dave and made another call. What's up, Stan? Said Linda, picking up the phone. I think Lucy and her friends are at my parents' house, I told her. Okay, she said. I'll get a couple federal agents and head over there right away. Stay put. We ended the conversation, and I handed the phone back to Dave. What's going on? He asked. I think Lucy and her buddies are at my parents' house right now trying to figure out where I am, I said. Yes, I heard what you told your father, he said. Do you think they'll buy that ruse? I hope so, I said. At least for a few hours. I knew we had 6 to 8 hours tops if they drove south to John's house. Maybe I'd better head out to find a place to hide until things settle down. No, Dave said. We're together. You stay where you are. Let me clean up a little and I'll go into town, talk to the sheriff. Don't go anywhere, you hear me? I nodded my head. A couple hours later, he left the house and headed into town. After he left, Linda called back. Stan, you were right, she said. Lucy, Marie, Jake, and a couple of their bastards got there after the hearing. They tied up your relatives and threatened them. They said they wouldn't give away your whereabouts. Now, we've put out an APB on them. They left one of their idiots here, and he's in custody now. Of course he's not talking. Do you know where they're headed? I asked. No, I don't know, but I don't think they bought your story, she said. Here, talk to your father. A few seconds later, my father was on the phone. Stan, I don't think they bought that ruse, he said. Are you guys okay? I asked. Yeah, everything's fine now, but I think Lucy and her friends are headed your way, he said. What makes you think that? I asked. I overheard Lucy talking, he said. Okay, I said. Let Linda know to call the sheriff. It'll be done, son, he said. Be careful, you hear? I will, Dad, I said. The next voice on the phone was Linda's. Where exactly are you located? She asked. I told her where I was and gave her directions. Do you think Lucy knows where this is? She knows, I said. All right, Linda said. Stay where you are. We'll send someone over there as fast as we can. We finished talking, and I headed toward the house. As I was leaving the store, I heard a familiar voice. It was Jake. Well, he said. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? Nice try telling your parents you're going south, when really you're up north. Lucky for us, Lucy knew that's where you were going. Now move, he added, waving the gun around. Get in, he said, pointing to a black SUV. I climbed into the back seat and saw Lucy looking at me with a smirk. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? She asked with a smirk. This isn't going to end well for you, Lucy, I said. The cops will be here soon. Never mind, she said. It'll be too late for you. You should have just followed the program. Now you're going to pay for it. Marie and Jake laughed. Jake told their man to take them to a place along the creek bed at the bottom of the hill. When we pulled up, Jake opened my door and gestured for me to get out of the car. So you're planning on ending me? I asked Lucy. She laughed. You know what they say. Dead men tell no tales, she said. Jake and Marie laughed as their man tied my hands behind my back. When he was done, he made me get down on my knees. First things first, Jake said. You know, I've always wanted to do something outdoors. How about it, Lucy? Are you ready to give your soon-to-be-deceased husband one last show? To have something to spend it with? What the hell? She said. Come here, baby. Jake hummed. Just think about it, Stan, she said. While your soul is no longer in you, Jake will be with me. I'll enjoy spending your money and playing the part of the grieving widow. The man holding me chuckled. Enjoy it, he whispered. It will be the last thing you see. I turned away, not wanting to watch. It would serve them well. I told you Lucy would expand her horizons, Marie said. You might as well enjoy the show. This will be the last time you see your wife. After about half an hour, Jake finished their scene. I looked at Lucy. Why? I asked her. Why did you do it? She shrugged. What can I say? She asked rhetorically. He's richer than you are. Besides, I don't want to be married to a welder for the rest of my life. I want the good life, and Jake can give it to me. Are you two done reminiscing? Asked Jake. We have things to do, and it's getting late. He pointed at the bandit, which made me lean forward. Jake, meanwhile, went to the SUV and came back with a long sword. I'm sure you know what happens next, old boy, he said. Don't worry, I'm told it's almost instantaneous. You won't feel a thing. Now make your peace with God, asshole. I closed my eyes and said a silent prayer. I saw Jake's shadow and knew he had raised his sword. Then I heard a rifle shot. I saw Jake fall to the ground. His eyes were still open, but I knew he was no longer alive. Another shot rang out. Marie tried to grab Jake's gun, but another shot rang out. Lucy looked around frightened and tried to take cover behind Jake. In the background, I heard the distinctive sound of a four-wheeler and realized it was heading our way. I tried to see who it was, but all I could see was a cloud of dust coming toward us. Then she sped toward us, and I saw long blonde hair streaming behind the driver. I realized it was Beverly. She stopped the four-wheeler and jumped off, holding a hunting rifle with a telescopic sight in her hand. She pulled a large knife from her belt and cut the zipper binding my hands. Once free, I sat back and watched her run up to Lucy. She slammed the butt of the rifle into Lucy's face as hard as she could, causing her to fall on her back. Don't you dare touch my man again, or I swear to God I'll blow your stupid head off, yelled Beverly. Do you understand me? I say, do you fucking understand me? Lucy nodded her head slowly. Sirens wailed in the distance, and Beverly walked over to the quad bike and pulled out a flare gun. She pointed it into the sky and fired a flare to let the cops know where she was. Soon we saw flashing lights heading in our direction. Are you okay, sweetie? She asked, walking over to me. I do now, I said. You saved my life. I can never repay you for that. Trust me, you'll have the rest of your life to make it up to me, she said with a smile. Soon we found ourselves surrounded by police cars. Dave pulled up in his truck and got out of it to check us out. One of the deputies called for an ambulance and a medical examiner. Are you okay? Asked Dave, coming up to us. This is who I am now, thanks to Bev, I said. She saved my life. The sheriff took our statements and supervised the operation. By this time, the ambulance had arrived and the paramedics were looking after Marie and Lucy. She's done with Jake and Ronnie, Marie shouted. Aren't you going to arrest her? No, said the sheriff. This is Dave's property, and we have the fortress doctrine in effect here. Miss Brolin had every right to protect Mr. Shipman's life. Consider yourself lucky she didn't do the same to you. While I watched, the deputies handcuffed Lucy and took her away. The sheriff informed me that he was charging her and Marie with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. After the officers collected evidence and removed the bodies, we were released. I rode the quad bike with Beverly to the house. I thought you had class today, I said. What's wrong? Dave came into McDonald's and told me what happened, she said. I excused myself and came home. I had to make sure you were okay. I saw tire tracks in the grass and followed them to where you were, so I got in the deer stand I had set up. Well, you know the rest. When I saw what Jake was going to do, I just reacted. I'll catch up, don't worry. I'm not worried, I said. I'm grateful, more than you can imagine. I grabbed my phone and called Linda to let her know what had happened. She was relieved to hear that I was okay. After that, they'll be where we need them to be, she said. Don't worry, the firm is going down, and hard. I sure as hell hope so, I said. Afterward, I called my parents to let them know what had happened. They too were happy to hear that everything had ended well. That night, I thanked Beverly fervently for saving my life. I was more than happy to comply. Epilogue. Marie recovered from her wounds, and she and Lucy were tried on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were found guilty and convicted on charges related to my initial assault and unlawful detention. Both received life sentences and faced more charges related to conspiracy and racketeering by the firm. I'd only seen them twice in all that time, once when Bev and I were called to testify, and the second time when they were sentenced. Both times they looked like shit, and I couldn't help but smile. The bottom line was that neither of them would ever breathe free air again, and I couldn't have been happier. Meanwhile, Beatrice obtained a divorce, and thanks to Lucy's persuasion, convinced the judge not to give her anything. She also secured a large payment to Marie, as well as Jake's inheritance. By the time she was done, I was in the money. Yes, Bernice got some of the money too, but I was very happy with my share. The firm settled for a very large sum, as the partners defended themselves against numerous federal charges, including racketeering and charges related to the mysterious deaths of 2 other men. By the time all was said and done, the firm was forced to close up store, and the partners found themselves behind bars for life. All of this took place over the course of about 6 months. By the time it was over, I had more than enough money for Beverly and me to live on for years. I bought a beautiful ring for her, and proposed to her in a dignified way, getting down on one knee. She squealed and showered me with kisses. A month or so later, we got married and spent a week in Las Vegas. When we returned, we sat Dave down in the living room and proposed. His eyes widened when we proposed the formation of D&S welding and custom fabrications. "Are you serious?" he asked us. "Hell yeah," I said. Beverly pulled out her spreadsheet and showed him the business plan she'd drawn up. He leaned back in his chair, looking at it carefully. "You know, I think this might work," he said. "I almost forgot, by the way," he added, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a bunch of keys and held them out to us. "You know that lot on the south side?" "Yes," Beverly said. "What about him?" "Did you see the new 2-seater sitting on it?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "We thought you'd sold that lot." "No," he said. "It's your wedding present, from me and your parents," he added, looking at me. "It's brand new and equipped with all the latest advancements. By the way, the plot and the house are registered in your name. Dad and I have already moved your things from the apartment into it, except for the ones with Lucy's picture on them, of course." "Wow," I said. "I don't even know what to say." Sure, I could afford a custom-built house, but a 2-bed house was nice and just as sturdy as a log home. I certainly wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I knew this place had to cost them well over $150,000. "Say thank you, partner," he said, holding out his hand. I smiled and took his hand. We ended up in a manly bear hug. "Would you mind if we went down there?" asked Beverly. "I'd hate to see you alone." "I'll be fine," he said. "Besides, I'll finally be able to get a decent night's sleep. I'm getting tired of listening to you guys screaming all night long." We had a party that night, and I called my parents to thank them for the gift. Later that evening, Beverly and I christened the bedroom. Yes, I thought, lying in each other's arms. Things are shaping up just right. Here comes the finale of this gripping story. We witnessed the culmination of a drama full of betrayal, danger, and unexpected twists. Stan, captured by his ex-wife and her accomplices, came face to face with death. But fate had prepared an unexpected turn for him. At the very last moment, his faithful friend, and, as it turned out, the love of his life, Beverly, comes to the rescue. This story shows that even in the most hopeless situations, there is a place for hope and salvation. Sometimes, true love can work a real miracle. We hope that this story made you experience the whole range of emotions. And remember that real strength lies not only in physical strength, but also in strength of spirit and love. Thank you for watching the video up to this point. Subscribe to this channel by clicking on this stupid subscribe button so that YouTube can recommend my new voiced stories to you. And also, do not forget, the full version of the story is available on our Patreon. Until next time.